Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Masechtas Menachot daf Yud Daled. We are going to begin on the bottom of Yud Gimel and Beis by the Mishnah. Shochat Shnei Kvasim. So, when it comes to the Kisei Aseres, which are brought on Shavuos, there were two sheep. The pasuk says that there was Shnei Kvasim, as Rashi says, Bnei Shana, was Zevach Shlomim. They were brought as a Shlomim offering. And v'oisim kvasim matirin, so those kvasim are matir, umikanchin b'shtei halechem, and they become sanctified with the shtei halechem. This is just reading what Rashi says. V'afagav design kvasim upar v'elim shnayim v'sir izim ksiv, even though it mentions a lot of other karbanos. Shein halechem kodesh el b'shchit, the breads only become kodesh by the shchita shnei kvasim shlomim hoyel pusku imo hatanufa. So basically, the shtei halechem are linked to the shnei kvasim. Anyway, let's say a person shechs the shnei kvasim, and his intention is echol achas min hachalos l'machar, that one of the two breads, which again is linked to the kvasim, that his intention was that one of the two breads he was going to eat tomorrow. Now, this actually goes back to question 10. What is the mater for the shtei halechem? And the answer is that the shnei kisei aseres is the mater for the shtei halechem. In order to be able to eat the shtei halechem, the kvasim need to be brought. So they're linked. So hiktir, for that matter, let's say you were makdir shnei, let me just mark this down over here because this is really question 10, even though I saw it before. Hiktir shnei bazichin. Let's say, with regard to the lechem apanim, you're maktir the shnei spoonfuls of levina. Le'echol echad min hasidavim l'machar. So, in other words, while you're doing one thing, your intention is incorrect on one of the other two. So, in that case, what's the status of the other one? Rav Yossi Omer oiso hachala. Since you had an improper machshava on that one, either that one spoonful of frankincense or that one of the breads of the shtei halechem, that one's pigel v'chayvin of kares if it was the wrong time and eaten. However, Vasheni puzzle, the other bread, is considered to be puzzle. However, in bo kares, we're not going to say that the other bread also becomes pigel. Okay, so that is the din. V'chachamim armim zev zeh pigel v'chayav alav kares. Interestingly enough, the chachamim say that once you had a machshava on one part, it's also pigel for the whole thing. So that's an interesting machlokas. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Hay Rav Yossi pigel b'yerech shalimin. Let's say a person has pigel on one of the thighs, the right one. It's not going to cause on the left one. All right? And therefore, if a person would eat it, there's not going to be chayiv kares on the left thigh. So my time, what's the logic? The machshava is not so strong from the way that tuma works. If you have all these separate limbs, they're not attached anymore, and one of them becomes tamei, the whole thing doesn't become tamei, just that one limb. And therefore, it's going to be the same thing when it comes to this din, that it's not going to cause you to be chayiv kares on the other one. If you eat from it, that one that you had a pigel machshava on, only that one you'll be chayiv kares. Mimenu v'lo mechaveiroi, not the other ones. Esvei Rav Nachman and Rav Huna. So that's the question. We mentioned this shita, and it says the chachamim oimrim, but this is going to be the whole question. Who says this? Interestingly enough, there's no din kares unless you have pigel on both loaves, because b'shneihem in ba'achs mehen loy. If you have a machshava about one of the breads, not. Now, money. He says that even if all you do is have a machshav on one of them, the other one is also pigul and chayv kara. So Pshita Rav Yossi. Rav Yossi must be the other shita. So iyamrit bishlom, if you want to tell me by the case of the two thighs, chad gufa, who it's still considered to be one body, mishum hachim et starif, and therefore it really should be able to combine one to the other, then that makes sense. Elwa, rather, Yudal Manalf, iyamrit trey gufin inhu. If you want to say that they're completely separate, that if it doesn't combine by the same animals, so mimet starfi, so kabel the two chalos, which are separate, shouldn't combine, and not all pigul. So hamani Rabbi, this is actually, look at Rashi first. Gabi yoreichais, when it came to the right and the left thigh, the machad gufa, it's on the same body, also so tri gufa ninhu, we consider like two separate ones. V'i pigul zu, buloy zu, or the spalgo zu, the other one doesn't become pigul. So gabi chalos ki archan le'echol kazayis mishteyen. You want to eat a kazayis from both of them. Mima starfi, mima hani irav machashavtai. Okay. So he says like the sheet of Rabbi, the sign hashoichet has a keves le'echol chatzi zayis mechal zeh. A person shechs the keves, and his intention is to eat not a whole kazayis, but a chatzi zayis from one, and also the other one, le'echol chatzi zayis mechal zu. So Rabbi Omer and I hold shezeh kosher, that this is okay, because these two chatzi zaysim are not going to be mitzdarf, and therefore you can be makter these sacrificial parts and eat the basar, because it's only considered to be chatzi achila with chatzi mater. So taima diamer chatzi chatzi, it's because he said half and half. Of Omer kazayis mishtem, we said a kazayis from both of them, then maybe it is mistarf. He says that even one, you're still going to be chayiv, right? Even by the animals, even though they're separate, you're still going to be chayiv. You're still going to be chayiv. So Rav Yossi hadar kushel duchte. It goes back to the original question that even by the animals they're separate according to Rav Huna. Oyel maliba the rabban v'lo tema ad sheyifal b'shteihen oim ad sheyifgal bishneihen. That you piggle by both of the lambs. Yafilu ba'achas mehen, even on one of them, namely that it's on a chatzi mater. Lafuki midrab meir di'emer mafalga b'chatzi mater kamash mon deloy. There's no din piggle on chatzi mater. Yihachi mayu oilum. What does it say? This word oilum. What is that coming to teach us? So iyam Rabbi Shalom b'shtehen. That way we originally read it. So uvishnei Rav Yossi lafukin Ramei Rabbanan kaasi. So it's coming to exclude Rav Meir. Rabbanan kaasi. Hainu de karmel oilum. Eliyam Rabbanan lafukin Rav Meir ma'il oilum. It's only by the lambs. Vote and furthermore, Hoim Rav Ashi Tashma. He wrote like this: Rabbi Omer Mishum Rav Yossi pigul b'davar hanas b'chutz. Once a person has pigul on something which is on for the outside, pigul b'davar hanas b'fnim. Person who has pigul on something which goes in the inside, will pigul. So ketzad ketzad hayimid b'chutz. Let's say you're outside. You're mahareni sheichet al. I'm going to shecht al manas l'hazos medamul l'machar. I'm going to sprinkle the blood tomorrow. So pigul. Why? Shemachshava b'chutz. Because your machshava is on the outside. So it has to, you can't be chayav pigul when you're already doing something not even in the right place. But ever hanas b'fnim hayimid b'fnim yomer harenu mazal manas l'hatnim morim l'machar. I'm going to end up doing it tomorrow. V'lishach shirayim l'machar lo pigul. Why? Shemachshava b'fnim b'davar hanas b'chutz. Because your machshava is when you're inside regarding something which is on the outside. Hayimid b'chutz. Let's say you're standing outside. I'm going to shecht al manas lishvech shirayim l'machar, to spill the leftovers tomorrow. L'hakti morim l'machar. Pigul shemachshava b'chutz b'davar hanas b'chutz. So this is done on the outer mizbeach, so therefore that is a proper machshava. If we look in Rashi, pigul b'davar hanas b'chutz, Gabi parm hanisrafim useirim hanisrafim ksiv, b'teres kohanim b'parshas pigol, the tzavas aron l'hazois medamo al proiches hakataris yimorav al mizbech hachitzon. Okay, so again we're talking about the mizbech hachitzon. Lishboich shiraim leflugi mai, ilim leflugi dam. That's referring to the blood of eating the blood. Dam mi mafagel. There's no din da pigol on blood, but tanan. El devarim shein chayav lehem mishum pigol. Hakayim etzol avoyin v'akataris u'minachas kohanim, minachas nesachim, and minachas kain mashiach v'adam. So when it comes to the dam, there's no din pigol. El pshita laflugi basar has to do with the basar. So hashno mab hasam over there. Doloi chishe be babasar gufe. Rav Yosi mefagel. He still says it's pigol. So hachad chashe be bezevach gufe l'koshkin the pigol. Berach Yamin Pigel B'Yerech, so Hiflig B'Yerech Yamin Pigel B'Yerech Smoil should be Pigel on the other side. Vod Ha'im Ravinu Tashma HaKaimet says a mincha. A person is doing kamitza. Le'achol shireha. His machshav is to eat the leftovers or lahater kumtza l'machar. So our Mishnah said before that Moed Rav Yosef was Zusha Pigel B'Chayv L'Lav Kares. In this situation, you are Chayv Kares. However, lahater kumtza. If, let's say, when it comes to doing the kamitza, that your machshav is improper during the kamitza, that there's a kamitza on the kaimitz mi miflag. It can't be talking about the kamitza, but kaimitz. So it can't be talking about the kaimitz because no din pigel on that. We're talking about on the leftovers. Hashno ma hasam doli chashiv bu b'shirayim gufe. Even though when it comes to Shirayim, as nonetheless the din is mefalgi, there's still a din pigol in that case. So hacha de chashiv behu bezvicha over here where the pigol on the right b'yerech yamin is chashiv basar. It's like the body of the animal. Well, koshikain elam Rabbi Yochanan high time, but Rabbi Yosi. Why does he say that the bread is not pigol? Hakasav asan guf echad. Because the Torah considers like one eating. But kosav asan shnei gufin. Guf echad am akvi hadadi shnei guf. So he said one body, two bodies. Guf echad akvi hadadi. They makiv each other. Shnei gufin. Yom Rachmana hol chudei avida v'hol chudei avida. They're like separate. Or vinhu. However, if you mix them together, then misarvin, then it's considered to be mixed. Then kosav asan guf echad. Palginhu, so you can separate them. Mifli the hakasav asan shnei gufin, fine. But Rabbi Yochanan, pigel balachmi taida. Let's say a person has pigel regarding the breads of the carbon taida. Mahu b'minchas mahu minchas ma'afeh. When it comes to them, says Rashi, what's the question about the taida? Because we know that there's 40 breads that accompany it. Upigel be'echad min aminim. Let's say out of your pigel on 10 of them, does Rabbi Yossi and the Rabbanan argue in that case whether we say that there's going to be pigel on the other 30? Do we say, as Rashi says, kivan de zevach echad matirin kechad dam, it's like one? Or dilma kivan de lav chadaninhu, it's not the same type of bread, maybe it's different? Okay. Minchas ma'afe, says Rashi, sheshma shnei minim, hey chalois v'hei rakikin. There's two different types. One's 5 chalos and 5 rakikin. So mi oimer hoya b'kaimitz echel l'shnehem lo polig. Maybe since there's only one kamitza for both of them, they don't argue. Lo polig Rabbi Yosi v'im pile pigel b'chalos nispago rakikin, and therefore if you have pigel in the chalos, it should also work on the rakikin too. Ol dilma kivan de shnei minim polig. There are two different types of minim, so they argue. They do argue in that case as well. So minchas ma'afi mahut. So tanule bar tachlifa m'rav v'chein ta'omer b'lach mitayna v'chein awan ta'omer minchas ma'afi. So in fact, the din is the same when it comes to them. Tanaman mashas shchita. At the time of the shchita, chishav lechol chatzi zayis. Your intention was to eat chatzi zayis. So mashas zerika, you had a separate avoda, not during the same avoda, but during a separate avoda. Chishav lechol chatzi zayis. Pigel. So even though you had a chatzi zayis, they are connected, even though they're two separate avodos. V'shas zrika, right? Mibnei sheshchita v'zrika mistarfin. apparently for some reason the shchita and the zrika, even though they're two separate avodos, they can still be mitzdarf. It's only because they're both considered to be matirin. However, kabbalah halacha loy. Kabbalah halacha will not be mitzdarf. Hanach demicharkan. These avodos which are far away from each other, because shchita is the first of the four, zrika is the last. Nonetheless, they're mitzdarf. Tekoshkin hani demikarvin. So these other ones which are right next to each other should certainly be mitzdarf. Any v'atani levi arba avodos a mitzdarf lepigel. They're not. None of them combined. Shchita, zrika, kabbalah, halacha, tomrava lokasha, ha Rabbi harabanan. So the second brisa that says they're not mitzdarf is like Rabbi, and the first statement is like the shita of the Rabbanan that shchita and zrika are mitzdarf. Deciding sheichet as a keves, one who shechs on Shavuos the keves, and his intentions lechel chatzi zayis machalazu v'chein chavero lechel chatzi zayis machalazu. So Rabbi Omer ani shezek kosher, that you don't. It's not an issue because they're not combined. It's a chatzi shir and chatzi matir, so they don't combine. Even though it's two chatzi zaysim. Amar dishamad Rabbi. When does he say that they don't combine chatzi matir and chatzi achila? Because it's a chatzi matir and a chatzi achila. Kuloi matir and chatzi achila mishamas lei. Maybe in the case, if it's an entire matir, even though it's chatzi achila, maybe we do mitzvah. We do combine half and half. Normally, Rava bar Rav Chanan Labaya v'i Yisrael Rabbi Kuhu Matir v'Chatzi Achilo. So if that's true, that he holds that when it comes to the entire Matir and Chatzi Achilo, so Ligzor, you should maybe make a gzer and say Chatzi Matir v'Chatzi Achilo atu Kuhu Matir v'Chatzi Achilo. The Rabbi Yossi Gazer Rabbanan Gazer. The Rabbi Yossi Gazer Rabbanan Gazri. Rabbi Yossi Gazer did non lahakter lavaina asa. If your intention was to makter the lavaina lamachar, Rabbi Yossi Aimer Apostle, as he says, because also gzera the ein bokaris. Lamarmin pigel v'chayil of karis. Rabbana nami Gazri did non pigel b'kaimitz v'lavaina. Say a person has a machshavas pigel during the kmitz about the lavaina b'avoda v'lakaimitz. So these are two separate matirin, and you need both matirin. So Meir Omer pigel v'chayil of karis. Lamarmin mainbo karis actually falu b'chol hamatir, and this is only in mafagim b'chatzi matir. Amalei hachi hashna bishlam mahasam gazer Rabbi Yossi kaimitz the lavaina atu kaimitz the mincha. Maybe he just is strict because they're pretty similar. One is the kmitza on the flour, and his geyser, because that is legitimate that he holds is pigel. So also because that you may get confused and think also by maybe therefore we say by kmitza the lavaina we also are strict. Rabbanan sav gazri kaimitz atu kaimitz minchas chayte. Lavana atu lavaina habab b'mezichin. Okay. Kvasim nami keves atu keves chavero. Bezach atu bezach chavero el hachami ika chatzi matam chatzi achila bialma doleikum beligzor. We don't. So hachi nami mistaber the matamid rabbanim misham hachi who the gatani seifa moedim chachamim rameir. But minachas chaytim, minachas kanois, shim pigel b'kaimitz, shepigel v'chayav no of karis, shekaimitz hu hamatir. So in that case, since there is no lavaina, so all you have is the kaimitz as the matir. So therefore, he would agree that you would be chayav. Halamulei lemisna klal. It's obviously pshita. Mika matir achrina. There's no other right. There's no lavaina, right? So if there's no lavaina, so obviously it's not. There's no machlokas of in. Whether mafal b'chatzi matir, because there's only one matir. Elav hakamashman, the time of the kaimitz mishum the ikar kaimitz the minchas chayte did dami away, because it's like the minchas chayte which is comparable to it. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Let's look at a couple questions. Question 11. B'shas shchita. Chishiv lechel chatzi zayis. B'shas zrika chishiv lechel chatzi zayis. So you have a chatzi zayis and you have another chatzi zayis, and the question is, does that work? Mehim study machlokas im haytana kabbalah v'hayulacha nami mitzdarfin k'shchita v'zrika. So even though shchita and zrika is mitzdarf, the question is this mitzdarf? Yes or no? So you could say, Well, shchita and zrika, maybe the reason why there's a din, let's do it the other way around. The reason why maybe the other two should also be pigels because shchita and zrika are far from each other in the mitzdarf, so certainly these, which are closer. Or you can say that shchita and zrika, they're both a matir. So maybe that's why the mitzdarf. And kabal and halacha, the la matir in ninhu, so therefore they may not be mitzdarf. Okay, so you can look at it either way. Question 12. Pigel b'kaimitz, and you did pigel during the time of the kamitz of the flour offering, global avoina, but not during the frankincense. So here you have, there's two matirs, but you only are mefagel b'chatzi matir. So pigel b'avoina b'kaimitz. Chachamim shein pigel b'chatzi matir ve'en bo kares. So he says there's no din kares. Madua mikol makom pasel merban lachil. So why can't you eat it? So he said, basically it's going to be gzera. Pigel b'kaimitz pasel atu kaimitz the minchas chayte. The reason why we say, even though it's really nothing, but he's geyser atu the kaimitz of minchas chayte, because or pigel b'lavaina pasel atu lavaina habam b'bezichen. So basically, the concern is that if there's no other matir, so then the whole issue of ein mefagel b'chatzi matir, so it shouldn't be a problem anyway. But the reason why you can't eat from it is because when it comes to, again, for example, the as it says here, time of the kaimitz mishum the ika kaimitz the minchas chayte the damile, and there's no other matir. So therefore, because of that, there for sure it's an issue of pigel. Says Rashi, the time of the pasur rabbanon, the reason why they pasel is b'shas hakataris kaimis the minchas nadava is mishum hachi hu the of the minchas chayti the damile shehem moedim shehu pigel. Definitely that's an issue of pigel. Over here it's a machlokis, but because it's comparable maybe, but you didn't realize though it's because there's one matir, only one matir by minchas chayte. There's two matirs when it comes to other minchas because you have the kataris and the lavaina. So you would think, okay, fine, maybe we are mafal, even the chatzi matir is good enough. So therefore we're strict and say you can't eat. TA 23. Le'edin ma nechshavin shtei halechem keguf echad l'pigel. In what regard do we say that the in what regard do we say that the shtei halechem is like one regarding to pigel? The inin ma nechshavim k'trei gufi lepigel. So, TA 23. Le'inin simit starfin lekazayis b'machshava chatzi mizeh v'chatzi mizeh haveli keguf echad. Right. So we say that it is takim starif. Right, even though it's chatzi, okay, that is one thing, and then also in pigel b'lechem echad l'nespag l'hashini chashivi k'trei gufi. So when it comes to being mitzdarf to a kazayis or mitzdarf chatzi zayis and chatzi zayis, however, when it comes to lechem, because there's two separate breads, lunis pagel hasheni, the second bread does not become pigel. So that's the explanation. And that TB 26, inyan ma nechshen shnei lechem keguf echad. So keguf echad. So we end up saying they're considered to be like one. I don't think I got it wrong. Inyan mitzdarfim because that's but machshav chatzi zayis v'likov echad. I'm just going to do like this: chatzi zayis v'chatzi zayis. Adkan.